Hello everybody. Next we return to league action where we will play host to Fulham. Kick-off on Tuesday night is at 7:30pm, which will mean getting home at a reasonable hour, trains permitting. So Fulham then. If such a thing still exists, they would probably be the first name down on your coupon for the treble chance. Yes, ask your granddad or somebody. Since 1st December, they've played 8, winning 2 and somewhat incredibly drawing 6. The wins came at home to Brighton, 3-1, and away at Chelsea, 2-1. The draws, largely a combination of 2-alls and 1-alls, came at home to Arsenal, at home to Southampton, which was the exception, being a 0-0 draw, and Bournemouth and Ipswich, with points picked up on the road at Tottenham and Liverpool. Overall, they've won 7, drawn 9 and lost 4 over the season, which leaves them in 9th place, with 30 points from the 20 they've played thus far. In the Cups, they went out of the League Cup in the 3rd round, drawing 1-1 at Preston, then going out 16-15 on penalties. Their kit man missing the first spot kick as each side ran out of players, probably. They had an easier time in this weekend's 3rd round of the Cup, easing past Watford 4-1 at Craven Cottage. On the signings, Daisy is enjoying her extended break. The slow start to the transfer window means that, pretty much like everyone else, they've yet to dip a meaningful toe in the water, meaning that Daisy has no new signings to research or report back to me on. It's almost like she planned it this way. Couple of players to look out for. Their top scorer this season is Mexican Raul Jimenez. He has 10 across all competitions, of which 8 have come in the league. The other player who seems to impress me every time I see him, but who doesn't seem to get too much in the way of plaudits, is Alex Iwobi. And every time I see him, he seems to be pulling the strings in midfield. Maybe he's unheralded because I don't see him that much, and I always seem to catch him on a good day, and he's rubbish the rest of the time. But he does often seem to be at the centre of things. On the injury front, Reece Nelson, Kenny Tett and Rodrigo Muniz are all out, while Sandor Berge may well make a return from an ankle problem, though the weekend is probably seen as being more likely. Not much more to say about them, so I'll move on to the wild and wacky world of association football. And every single irony meter in the country spontaneously combusted the other night when Virgil van Dijk was moaning at the referee in the League Cup semi-final that Bergvall shouldn't have been on the pitch to score the winner in the first leg. That's right, the player who received something like 1/10 of the yellows that he merits was complaining about one not being given when due. I think the word karma applies here. We should, of course, congratulate Spurs for pulling off the shock of the FA Cup 3rd round by getting past Tamworth. If you look in Harringay, keep an eye out open for the open-top bus celebrations later on this week. Let's move on to us. Well, on Friday night for about an hour or so, we looked okay. Then the match officials intervened again. For the second match running, we fell victim to the officials who saw something that simply didn't happen. Now, usually when referees mess up that badly, PGMOL step in with some sort of statement that rewrites the laws of the game to fit whatever horrendous error their employee has made. You know the sort of thing. Yes, the fullback handled the ball on the line, but that prevented the goal decision from ascertaining whether or not the ball had crossed the line either by 6 or 8 inches, so we felt it safer to award no goal. The recent events with David Coote may make one suspicious as to whether or not officials have been ingesting substances that, shall we say, may not be conducive to assisting decision-making in a group of people not exactly noted for their intellectual prowess in the first place. We'll never know, of course, PJMOL having decided that referees are so honest drug testing isn't required. Which is a shame, because I'd actually welcome the sight of an official explaining how his colleague awarded a corner because he saw the ball deflect off a pink dragon which arose out of the ground, adding that he was pretty sure the dragon was wearing a West Ham shirt and that the ref might have booked match winner Roberts twice, but he didn't have the heart to do so while his face was melting like that. I did suggest last week that Mr. Potter's first priority was to be a bit luckier than his predecessor. Unfortunately, the injuries we picked up suggest that a few mirrors may have been broken on his way into his first training session. Fulkrug pulled up in absolute agony as he broke out of defence in pursuit of a clearance. It was a shame, as his header at the start of what was a well-worked goal was, well, superb. Talking of the goal, fine finish it was from Paquetá. However, the Brazilian poses another priority for Mr. Potter. Someone has to have a word about all this clutching his face and throwing himself to the floor stuff. It's a shame because he had a decent first half and put in a lot of work. How about finding the player 2 weeks' wages every time he does it? If that doesn't work, he can go off to Liverpool where no doubt such antics are rewarded by bonuses. On another matter, we've received numerous reports of the digital ticketing system in the away section at Villa Park playing up, leading to congestion and serious overcrowding. Police blame the club for trying to use the same access areas for 6,000 supporters as they would do for 3,000. Reports suggest that the stewards reacted poorly to the situation and, in many cases, were conspicuous by their absence when the system refused to recognise some digital tickets. Other reports suggest that the internal concourses were also dangerously overcrowded. Villa have got Celtic shortly and Liverpool in March. The latter in particular are notorious for travelling without tickets, so they really need to get their act together at Villa Park sooner rather than later. On the injury front, Mickey's still at the early stage of his rehab. Bowen's probably looking at mid to end February for his return. Somerville's an odd one. When he pulled up, it looked for all the world that he caught hamstring from Fulkrug. However, after a couple of minutes of treatment, he returned to the fray, something that's generally ill-advised when it comes to hamstring problems. The word from the club is that Somerville's failure to appear after the interval was precautionary in nature, so there is still a possibility of seeing him on Tuesday evening at least. There's been no further update on Todibo or Emerson, so I'm assuming that they will both be hors de combat until the weekend at the earliest. The absence of Emerson led to one of the brighter things to come out in the match on Friday, namely the performance of young Mr. Scarles, who put in a fine performance at left-back, entirely justifying his selection over Cresswell. The defence looked a lot more stable than it does when Wan-Bissaka is shifted to the other side so that Soufal can be shoehorned into his preferred right-back slot. So let's look at the prediction then. Well, the Predicto-Matico Tron Daisy bought me for Christmas fell at the first hurdle on Friday. When I called customer support to complain, they blamed me for failing to boot up the Select Group Referee plugin, which throws in a random guess algorithm which matches exactly the same way that PGMOL officials come to their decisions. I'll try and factor that in this time. I think I saw enough in the first half to be impressed. However, my main worry being the lack of striking options for this week. Ings was fairly anonymous last time out, and there has been some talk that Kudus might be used up front. So much will depend on whether the fresh start feel-good factor can outweigh the injury problems that we face. Whilst I think it's possible, I'm going to give the Predicto-Maticotron another chance, and having pressed the English referee button, I will spend the £2 that would have been spent on a copy of the Blu-ray Spurs will no doubt be issuing in celebration of their win over Tamworth, just as soon as the open-top bus parade is done, on a wager that the game will end in a 2-2 draw. The money will be with you shortly, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.